Here now is Matt Austin and Ginger Gadsden with Florida's Fourth Estate. Sponsored by Light Orlando, delivering hope together.
Here in the beautiful Sunshine State, one of the main places to enjoy yourself is on the tennis court. And we have a training ground for some of the best players in the world, as well as some of the best coaches in the world, Ginger.
Oh my gosh, and we were talking about the best of the best. We have one in studio with us on Florida's Fourth Estate today, and I can't tell you how excited I am when I learned that he actually lives in Central Florida. We're talking about Jermaine Jenkins, and he's with USTA and Lake Nona. Jermaine, thank you so much for being here today, and I know I've been a freak about just greeting you and saying how excited I am, so I'm sorry for my energy level. I'm going to try and tone it down a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about what your role is at USTA right now?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. Excited about being on the show. So in Lake Nona, my role now is a national coach, specifically on the women's side. And I train transitional space specifically, where their ages around 15 to 21 years of age.
Yeah, so you're looking at new talent.
New talent, just getting your feet wet, just playing your first professional tennis tournament. So my role is to walk them through that journey to build those pro habits and, to transition into one day they build their own pro teams.
Yeah.
You say just getting your feet wet, but these are players who are awesome. They're like winning juniors. They've been playing their entire lives. So you're playing with like crazy good players. I know some of the names you've been a hitting coach with is Venus Williams, Naomi Osaka, some of the best number ones. Venus, one of the best ever played.
Yeah.
For sure. I don't think people understand like how good you have to be to hit with the best women in the world. Like there are probably only a handful of women who could hit with these women. So what is it like having to like match wits with these women every day?
Just being a sparring partner, you have to kind of emulate their next opponent, and maybe cover some details. You're talking to the coach, just giving him like pointers like, hey, here's what I think. But I think it's a big team effort. And, I think at the end of the day, I'm very grateful. So it's a lot of gratitude because you're traveling the world, seeing amazing places, amazing people, cultures, and doing what you love to do, I didn't make it as a professional, but, I look at this as my consolation, So,
But you were ranked at one point, right?
Yeah, but we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about
it. Of all the people in this room, only one has been ranked. So, but you're a Clemson grad.
Right.
Which I'm a Gamecock.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Okay.
And I'm a Seminole, so this is about to take a bad
small space right here.
It's all going to be fine. We're going to work it out. But when you talk about, and I know you've been out of the game as a hitting coach for a little bit, when I learned that you do what you do out at Lake Nona and what you did previously.
Right.
And I looked you up. I was like, I've never heard of this guy before. I don't know who he is. And I'm looking at you and I'm looking at me. Right? And so it's like, why don't more people know that you are this guy in this circle, right?
Right.
And I know that young kids now will be exposed to you, or so many people in Central Florida will now be exposed to you because you live in our backyard and I didn't know that, right?
Yeah,
and
that's true.
So how important is it that we see you and that people who look like you know that this is what you do?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think part of that reason is, the people that do look like me, they're signing, $40 million, $1 million contracts. And I think the barrier for tennis, is money.
So in other sports,
I think we lose a lot of our black males to other sports, because I think the entry to play tennis, first of all, you need a racket, that's about $200. You need
lessons.
Balls, you need lessons. It's not like you could just go out there and teach yourself how to play. It's a very technical sport.
Yeah.
And if you develop bad habits from the start, sometimes you'll see it. Those habits stick with you, throughout, your whole entire career. And so it's a very technical sport, similar to golf. And, I do believe, that, part of this initiative is finding a solution to make tennis a lot more accessible, to people who do look like you and I.
Sure. What are some of those solutions you think, though?
Yeah, I did.
Let's solve the problem right here at this table.
Can you figure out world hunger for us today?
Everyone, give me 5 minutes. I'll be back.
How long is this podcast?
Yeah, but I mean, it's got to take something, right?
Yeah,
and
for
sometimes
sure.
it's baby steps.
100%.
So what, there are parents out there who have talented children but no money.
Yeah, I think part of it is like what we're doing right now, exposure. You know, like I think we're bringing exposure, we're bringing light to it. You know, and I think if it sparks someone's interest to say, hey, I want to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need good coaching. I mean, and coaching is the part that I've got a daughter who plays tennis myself, and she's played for 10 years at least, and that is such a burden as far as like the cost. And I know in Lake Nona they have some things going on, but as far as like, if this sport is so hard, mentally, and I've seen Naomi Osaka came out very bravely, I thought, and she was struggling with some mental health things, and she was like, I need some time away. She could have easily said, oh, it's my hamstring or whatever. What else? But do you feel like this sport in particular is hard on, especially a young person trying to deal with all the pressure?
Yeah, 100%. I think just the internal battle or the internal conversation that you're having with yourself. It's not like you have teammates to kind of like, hey, I need some perspective. It's all you out there, and and part of that too could be a strength. Like it builds your problem solving skills. And it builds your self-belief, but you're right, it can go the other way as well. Your mind can play tricks on you because it is just you. And I think today's game on the women's side specifically, I know they are allowing some coaching aspect to go on during the competition now. So,
you think that was a positive change?
You know what? I'm indifferent, but some are like, oh no, they need to figure it out, and some people are like, no, this is great. When you watch soccer, you see the coach, and it gives the coach more personality as well. As opposed to just kind of sitting there stiff.
Every sport,
you got to be quiet.
Yes, oh my gosh.
But no, I think it's great for tennis. I think it will make it more popular. If you did have some kind of personality, in it as well. So
yeah. So when you are working with these young, up and coming people, right? What is it that you're looking for, and how do you know they have it? Because we hear so often it's like, oh, it's natural talent for some, but a lot of it is coaching. But how do you know? What do you recognize in someone when you see like, this is going to take a little bit, but we got this?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm looking for that dog. I'm looking for that dog.
What does that mean?
I'm looking for that fight. First of all, like how well do you handle adversity? Are you a person that wants to back out, or are you a person that's like let's embrace it, let's go? Do you need perfect conditions? Can you play in the wind? Can you play when maybe the referee called a bad call against you? Those type of things, that grit, that fight. That sometimes that can't be taught. Sometimes that's innate. And other things could be worked on. We can work on skill. We can work on your backhand, your forehand, and your serve. But I'm looking for the qualities that you don't see,
Still to come, Jermaine Jenkins reveals how he found himself on the other side of the court with former world #1 tennis player Venus Williams.
She allowed me to be her hitting partner for that week at US Open, which led into inviting me to Taiwan, which led into inviting me to the next gig.
Yeah.
And it was like, I blinked and I've been all over the world, and just amazing experience.
Plus, the budding young athlete he says could be the next big name in women's tennis. Welcome back to Florida's Fourth Estate and Jermaine Jenkins.
Can you play in the wind? Can you play when maybe the referee called a bad call against you?
You may not know his name, but you definitely recognize the players he's helped train. Now he's coaching a new rising star right here in Orlando.
So you've got an up-and-comer.
Right.
Can you tell us her name?
So her name is Claire V. Ningunwe, and please forgive me if I'm pronouncing your name.
That's why I had you say the name instead of me.
Yes, but just a young, talented girl, comes from a great family. Mom and dad, she was born in D.C., but originally from Cameroon. She also has a brother, Karel, who's 14, who's another up-and-comer one to watch. But just about her, like I said, she's just a pleasure to work with. She wants to get better. She gets it. She asks questions, and just socially, it's like I'm talking to an adult, you know,
Yeah.
when I'm talking to this 16, 17-year-old girl. And so I think holistically, you know, she's kind of mapped out the social aspect, you know, and then the sports, you know, she's had a great balance between tennis and life.
Yeah. And can you give us an idea of what a day looks like for this 17-year-old who's on the track to maybe be the next great one?
Yeah, I think a typical training week when she's home, you know, you're coming in at 8:30 a.m. to do your warm up, and we like to start early because, you know, it can get pretty hot here.
Yeah, for sure.
And so yeah, we'll go like a 9 to 11 where we're working on specifics, depending on what we're prepping for. Where she does a lot of drilling and training, and maybe do some film analysis where we break down and just kind of watch some film and learn from you know, some of the previous matches.
All that while trying to be a kid.
Oh my God. Well, that's the other thing too. Do you help in any aspect of them balancing, because social media is brutal, right? And so here's this person who's just putting themselves out there and trying to do the best they can. But also you have to let them be a teenager too. And you know, if she gets to a point where, okay, there are things said or everybody's got an opinion.
Right.
What do you, I mean, can you advise on that, or do you give any sort of suggestions? Because you're with her a lot.
Right. I think for me, myself, not really my lane, but I do know, like at USTA, I think they do a great job of sending the girls through media training. You know, also she has a sports agent, you know, that she can always lean on, or a PR person. And so I think she gets that training, but I mean, I think it starts at home, you know, like her parents are incredible people. They've instilled her with great values, and so they've built the person first, you know, and what you see is the tennis player sometimes second, but, you know, I think I just support them. I'm a big fan of the way that they're doing it, you know.
I'll see you and your brother, and you guys are all over the world.
Yeah.
And that has to be a bonus of what you do.
100%.
Because, so what is it about? Did you ever think that this would be your life?
No, not at all. You know, I think every kid, you know, who plays a sport most of the time, you know, I wanted to be like a basketball, baseball player. I played both of those sports growing up. So I was actually a late bloomer in tennis. I didn't get serious in tennis until I was around 14, 15.
That's late.
That is very
I think
late.
that's late, 'cause, you know, today's time that's pretty late,
Well,
because you've got to, you know, it's so competitive that you've got to kind of specify and go one direction or the other. I wanted to play professional tennis, so I went to Clemson University with the mindset that I was going to play under a coach at the time who was grooming pros. And so I was an All-American at Clemson, but I just didn't have the resources or the team behind me to do it the right way and to go about tennis the right way, meaning that, like, I feel you need, like, on the front end in tennis, you need at least like $100 grand, $200 grand to start. You know, it's a front end investment. You know, and I didn't have that at the time coming out of school. I think I was just happy to get a full scholarship. You know, I'm happy that I didn't have student loans and I wasn't a burden to my parents. But no. The way that I got my gig with Venus Williams was I was going to become the coach, or I was going to go into college coaching, and I did have an opportunity to train with Venus at one point. And so I remember just sending her a text message while I was in New York. I was at the US Open helping out my brother Jameer. He was in the qualifying round at the time. And so I think he lost qualifying round. I sent Venus a text message just like, hey, I'm here in New York. If I can be of service to you, just please let me know. And I mean, she answered the text message, and like literally the rest is history. You know, she allowed me to be her hitting partner for that week at US Open, which led into inviting me to Taiwan, which led into inviting me to the next gig. And it was like, I blinked and I'd been all over the world, and just amazing experience.
But you sent out a text. You reached out, right?
Yeah.
But that, I think that's very telling, because most people are like, oh, nothing ever happens for me. But you had to make it happen.
Right, I had to make it happen. But I mean, a couple of weeks prior, you know, a buddy invited me to Jupiter to actually play some golf, but also train with Venus, because she was looking for, you know, sparring partners. And so, you know, I came up on a random weekend and we literally just hit it off. We had a great practice. I actually was practicing helping with Serena before I hit with Venus, so it kind of eased my nerves.
Yeah, oh yeah, right.
So which lion do I play today?
Right. Yeah. So when I hit with Venus, I did a really good job. I was pretty settled in at that point, and so it wasn't like it was a stranger texting her when I got to New York.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks later, we went to New York, and I just kind of sent out a blank text like, "Hey, I'm here. Let me know."
You need somebody. Yeah.
Can I ask you a little bit about your upbringing, your
course.
family, your parents? Because
Of
I know
course.
I see you post about them too, like when it's your mom's birthday.
Right.
I love
course.
guys who just love their moms, right? So tell me a little bit about your parents and what. I'm sure that you had a great support system.
100%. So my parents are like angels. My mom and dad adopted 6 kids growing up. So I had 6 adopted siblings, and I have 2 biological brothers. So it was 9-10 of us coming up.
You sound like saints.
I like I said, I have 1 kid, so I'm just trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out how they made that work, And so so my parents just loved. My mom just loves on people. She loves to take care of people, and it's almost like when you get that pet, you go visit that pet, and you babysit it, and you can't give it back. So that's how my mom. She's like that with people, And so she just gets attached, and she can't say no, and major heart. And then my dad's just supportive. He's from a small town, Dublin, Georgia, and he got my older brother into tennis. He started him, and my older brother was pretty talented, and I watched him. That's kind of how I learned. He set the standard for myself and my younger brother, and that was our start into tennis. He set the bar pretty high, and we were like, okay, well, you've got to at least get a college scholarship. We can't have Sally Mae. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So we got to start there, and then from there, that's your platform for life. And so kudos to my parents, and shout out to my older brother.
Did you ever beat him?
Always.
Oh,
Always.
What about your other brother?
8 brothers, 1 sister. We were pretty competitive.
I would imagine so.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
you all play the same sport too.
It just, I love when you talk about family. And because if you don't have that support system, do you ever sometimes just think about the people who could have been, but
100%.
they just, they just don't have it. And I know there are people out there who don't have that support system, but they have something.
Yes.
What do you say to them? Because it feels like, because tennis is a hard thing to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even when you have support. So if you're talking, especially here in Florida, the opportunity is always there, right around the corner.
Yes.
And there's somebody who's probably walking around and is like, I know I can do this.
Yeah, and I think I would say to that person, because I did grow up with a lot of siblings, and so financially my parents couldn't afford tennis, and so we had a lot of help. I had coaches. Rest his soul, Ernie Peterson, who I grew up playing under. That was the coach who really started me outside of my dad. And we grew up playing in South Atlanta in a park called Burdette Tennis Center. And so he kind of was my father outside of a father, and he took me in and kind of mentored me. So I think that young kid, you've got to find someone, who cares about you outside of that, and you'll know who that person is,
Yeah, it seems like you're attempting to be that for the young people who are coming up. So how does it work? What is the goal? You're 37 now. By the time you're 55 or so, is the goal to find that next big person, be their coach, have them have an amazing career, and then open a tennis academy? How does it work? What are the big dreams right now for you?
Yeah, I think for me I think God's put me in a place to make impact, and I think through tennis, and I think that's my main goal for now, is however I can make a positive impact in someone's life by using tennis to do that. If I had a crystal ball, I'd like to be doing something with my brother and creating my family's legacy.
Yeah.
I just love that you are representing, and that you are here in the community, and that people who haven't seen you before or gotten to know you, I think they're just going to fall in love with you and root for whatever you do. I know I am.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching Florida's Fourth Estate. You can download it from wherever you listen to podcasts or watch anytime on News 6 Plus.